Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here to enlighten you on several steps that you ought to take in order for you to get over your ex. And in many times, we both know that most of the relationships, they might end up just because the other partner or because the misunderstanding between the two of you. And in many times, there are people who end up the relationship when they are still in love with the other partner. And we ought to get to know that a breakup does not just end a relationship. It can also destroy your self-love and the self-worth, and also it can tamper with your mental stability. So, in many times, relationships make us feel unworthy, lonely, and unwanted. It can be a devastating blow to your mental health, especially if you're still in love with your ex. But there are ways that I'm going to enlighten you in order for you to get over this ex of yours, if at all you are sure of the ending of the relationship. First thing that you ought to take in order for you to get over this so-called ex is to cut the communication. And when I talk about cutting off the communication, this means that you ought to forget them completely, in that you will not stalk them on their social media platforms, meaning you'll have to block their accounts in these social media platforms, let's say maybe YouTube, maybe Instagram. So you ought to cut communication between the two of you. And most importantly, you ought not to get to know where this ex of yours is, or who they are with, or what they are doing, in order for your mental stability. When cutting off communication, you'll have to forget this ex of yours completely, in that you won't text either of your friends, the friends you used to know when you are dating. So the first point in order for you to get over this ex of yours is cutting communication between the two of you. This involves both direct and indirect communication. When we talk about direct communication, I mean the two of you conversing. Or when I say indirect communication, I mean maybe you're using an intermediary to get to this ex of yours. So you ought to cut communication between the two of you in order for you to get over this ex of yours. The second point, you have to forgive the past. In many times when the relationship ends, you ought to be blaming yourself, in that you're saying that maybe if I could have done this, or maybe if I could have behaved in this manner, maybe this relationship might have worked. And we both know that relationship is supposed to be a safe haven, in that you're supposed to feel at home, feel at place when you're in this relationship. And so many of the people ought to be blaming themselves, asking why this relationship won't work, why this relationship decided to end, because you thought that having this partner was the best part of your life. So you'll have to forgive your past in order for you to get over this ex. When I say forgiving your past, this means that you'll have to forgive your ex, and most importantly, you'll have to forgive yourself. And mostly, we need to own mistakes. Like, you say, okay, I did this, and maybe if this relationship ended, it was meant to end. Maybe the two of us are not meant to be together, and that's why this relationship ended. So when you own mistakes, it's not a sign of weakness or something of the sort, it's a sign of maturity. So you'll have to forgive the past in order for you to get over your ex. And point number 3, let's get real. When relationship ends, we ought to live in fantasy. Fantasizing of how this relationship could have been, fantasizing of how maybe this partner could have treated me in order for this relationship to work. So we ought to fantasize most, like maybe if I was dating this person, or maybe if I was still in this relationship with this person, maybe if we could have done this and this relationship would have worked. So we ought to dwell most on fantasy, and we ought to forget the bad parts of the partners, the bad part of maybe your ex. Like when you're at a distance from your ex, like what rings in your mind? What is it that rings in your mind? In many times, the good parts ought to overlap the bad parts. That we ought to think that maybe if I get back to this ex of mine, and I do so and so, this relationship might work. And in real sense, you knew the reason why you walked out of that relationship. So there is no need of you fantasizing in order for you to regain your mental stability. So you'll have to get real with yourself, stop fantasizing in order for you to attain your mental stability. And point number 4, how to get over your ex, is to understand it's natural for you to still love your ex. Like, you might have this feeling, this, like, we are all human beings and we all have feelings, and in many times we always want this person so bad, in that when we see them moving on, we feel that jealousy. We have that jealousy in us. So, like, you still love the person, but you can't be in a relationship with them. So you'll have to forget them in order for you to focus and in order for you to move on with your life. So you have to understand that it's natural to still love your ex. And last but not least, the fifth point, of how to get over your ex is, don't forget to love yourself. When I say you're not supposed to forget loving yourself, I mean that you ought to prioritize yourself, you ought to prioritize your capabilities, you ought to be in terms with your mind. You ought to stop thinking more of how this ex could have cheated you in order for this relationship to work. So you'll have to love yourself. Mental stability starts with accepting and loving yourself. So you'll have to love yourself, be at par with your mind first for you to get over this ex of yours. So don't forget to love yourself. And breakups are inevitable. Breakups are inevitable, maybe for this reason and that's why that relationship never worked. So you don't have to blame yourself for so and so happening. So in short, moving on from an ex you still love is important for your mental health. It's a process that will have its good days and its bad days, but you'll have to get to do this. Remind yourself that things are getting better every day, and that you are shedding the past, getting rid of your emotional damage, and you are going to focus on growing. Guys, thank you for your time. Remember to subscribe to my channel, like and comment. Bye bye, till next time.